custodians of the lands I'm joining you from today, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on this call. Feel free to write down in the chat where you're joining us from today. And so now I'll hand over to Steph. So thank you, Steph.
And I'm on mute. Hi, everyone. My name is Steph. Lovely to meet you all. Since we can't see all of you, as Yvonne had mentioned, feel free to drop your name and where you're dialing from into the chat so we can all get to know one another. And if you also have your LinkedIn profile handy, feel free to drop it in there as well so we can all stay in touch. So to kick things off, we think it's safe to say that many of us have chosen to dial in today because we want to connect, whether that's simply getting to build your network, learning about what others are doing in the net zero space, maybe sharing what has worked very well, maybe what hasn't worked so well, and perhaps all of the above. And it's important to recognize that building a community looks different for everyone, which is why today you'll be hearing from a diverse group of experts from your CitySwitch community. As Yvonne already mentioned, we have Zoe from NABERS, who, in case you don't already know, is part of the National Steering Committee for CitySwitch. You'll also be hearing from 6 of our CitySwitch champions from 2023 who have been recognised for making great progress in 3 areas of the net zero pathway, which is reduce your waste, getting your team on board, and greening your supply chain. So you'll be hearing from Julie from NOUS, Harry from Boston Scientific, Susan from JLL, Emily from EnviroDNA, Josh from Pangolin Associates, and as well as Alistair from Green Energy Trading. And then following from after we have the speakers share their experiences, we'll then actually have a panel conversation with everyone around how they have connected with their peers and how that has really enabled them to go further on their net zero pathways. And then by that stage, we've probably done enough talking. So we'll head into our respective breakout rooms where you can connect with one another directly based on the topic that you're most interested in before we wrap up today's session. We've also set aside time at the end for any questions. So feel free to drop them in the chat, and throughout, if we're able to answer them directly in the chat, we will do so. And if not, we'll see how we're going for time and make sure that we can get to as many as we can. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Zoe from NABERS.
Thank you so much, Steph, and great to see all of the CitySwitch team here today. Really pleased to come and speak on this topic, connection, and how people use that connection to further sustainability ambitions is one of my absolute passion topics. So this is a really nice invitation to receive to come and chat about this and be part of the event. So thanks so much for having me. So I'm the sector lead at NABERS. I'm sure everyone's familiar with NABERS, and I'm really overexcited about the connection part of the conversation. So I won't be dwelling too much on the NABERS part, but of course, reach out at any time if you want to have a NABERS discussion. Always open to have that one as well. I do think connection is one of the most important things that you can do in this space. And I wanted to, when I was thinking about how do I structure this conversation, I wanted to break it down into the different types of people that I think are most important to connect to, and then a couple of kind of tips along the way from what I've seen working with businesses over, 15 years or so in the sustainability space. So number one, industry bodies, programs. Don't have to preach that one because you're here at a CitySwitch event. So you're part of an industry organisation already, part of a leadership program. There's a whole bunch out there. CitySwitch is a really awesome one for the tenant space or corporate space, but you're all coming from very different businesses as well. So there might be industry specific ones out there that you can tap into. And they're really, really useful for resources, tools, guides, templates, things like that. And I think it's a great way to take advantage of what knowledge is out there and what tools are out there in industry already. There might be things that you can sign up to, things that you can, publicize your ambitions or targets within your organization, and those can be really useful as a business as well. And so you're already here, you're already part of CitySwitch, leverage that as much as possible for the tools and resources. The second thing that the second group is your allies. So in that space, firstly, those within your business, find your allies within your business. Who within your own organization cares about the same stuff as you? That's a kind of great starting point for making a connection within your organization. They may not sit in the sustainability team or the part of the business that you're in, but when you can find those shared values and shared things that you're concerned about, those are great people to connect with. Look for the others who have KPIs that are the same as yours or align with yours, or who have data that you need to use. Those people are going to have the same motivations to get projects done and investment within the organization, whether that's support or funding. So you don't have to kind of battle for those resources alone. If there's other people in the organization, you know, your facilities management team or your reporting team or ESG team, make sure you're making those connections on the shared ambitions, but also look for those aligned ambitions within your organization. Often overlooked is the marketing team, the communications team, the customer engagement team, because that storytelling about your business and the sustainability work that you're doing, that is something that other parts of the business want to talk about. They want to tell that leadership story, and they want to tell that story to customers and potential customers and clients. So look for those connections that you can make within your organization to make allies. And then within your building is another great place to find allies. And one of the really obvious ones is your landlord. They, like you, will be an organization with really high ambitions for sustainability. They're in the property sector, so they've got a lot of knowledge around buildings and how operational things can be improved. And you can make connections there to try and do things together. There's also tenant working groups, and those tenant rep meetings do tend to be a little bit dry in the topic sometimes. There will be other neighbours of yours, other tenants within your... Thank you. Other tenants within your building here you can talk to. You might want to do something like a neighbours co-assess, where you're getting your tenancy rated alongside other tenants within the building and your landlord at the same time. So I did get to get a quick neighbours plug in. Try and leverage other companies within your building, because you can work together on a lot of projects, whether that's waste or getting neighbours ratings. And finally, your peers. This is a really important thing, especially if you're in a small sustainability team within your own organization. Who else can you connect with? I say this all the time, copy the homework. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. Any challenge that you've got, any problem that you're trying to solve, somebody else in another business will have been battling that same battle. They may have tried some solutions, they may have failed on some things, but talking to other people, you get a lot of information, a lot of learnings. It's really better if we talk and share, move faster, and get to those solutions quicker. And people are really generous in the sustainability space. So it is a little bit of a make friends, because not only will you feel a little bit less alone, you'll feel a real sense of community, but you'll also be able to leverage the sense of FOMO. This is what other people in the industry are doing. We should be doing something as well. It's a bit of healthy competition when you talk about, our competitors are actually setting targets like this. Those things can be really useful to leverage within your business, but you'll also feel that sense of community. And so show up to things, go to the drinks with CitySwitch, turn up in those rooms and talk to other people, because people are really willing to share where they're at and how they got there. Thank you. I'll pass back to you, Steph.
Great. Thank you so much, Zoe. You covered so many things that just, I feel like, is getting our minds going with how we can connect with one another in a very short amount of time. So super impressive. I think during the panel discussion, I'd love to ask you more questions and dive deeper into a couple of those. So I'd like to actually hand it over to Julie, who will be speaking, who's actually sharing initiatives and outcomes from the NABERS group. Hand it over to you, Julie.
Great. Thanks, Steph. Pleasure to be here today and talking about our journey on getting more sustainable outcomes for in our organization. So to introduce myself, I'm Julie. I'm from Nous Group. I'm dialing in from Wurundjeri country today, and want to acknowledge elders present and past as well. And yeah, to kind of give an introduction to Nous, we're a management consulting firm. We operate mostly in Australia, but have some offices in Canada, UK as well. We mainly work with public sector space, with the government, and a range of clients on a lot of big issues. And one of the things that I do on the side, along my normal work, is this really important work in sustainability at Nous Group in the green team. And so one of the things I really focused on in the past year and also last year and this year as well is to really double down on our waste. And so what that looked like was really trying to make sure we streamline the way we track our waste so we know where we're progressing and so we know where to invest our efforts in. And so I'll kind of start with our where we started last year in mid 2023. So at that time, we identified that one of the things that we had a gap in was our waste data. So we didn't really have a reliable or systematic way of collecting waste data. It was mostly ad hoc from volunteers, whoever, like they leaned in whenever they had the time. But there wasn't a comparable way of doing it. And so one of the things that we did was that we reached out to CitySwitch. One of our sustainability coordinators reached out to CitySwitch because they had a contact. And so with CitySwitch, we really leveraged the templates and methods that they had around, how to actually do a waste audit in a systematic way. What we did was a week-long waste audit across each of our offices, which was it was pretty simple compared to doing it like every so often or ad hoc. So we did it a week long waste audit across all our offices, and with that, we had CitySwitch to also help us provide a waste report around, where's the contamination happening, what waste streams we need to really focus on, and I guess suggested focus areas, and how that also translates to carbon accounting, which is one of the things we're trying to really work on as well, to really get that that data really shows our progress. And so with that, we were really able to inform where we're at. And you can see on the screen that it led to us making 3 waste targets. So first of all, is to increase the diversion rate 50%, reduce waste generated by every full-time employee across each office, and reduce the contaminations rate. And so clicking to the next slide, how we kind of use those waste metrics and waste targets was, and on the left you can see that's a waste assessment that CitySwitch provided for us. We used that data, and with the help of our local people in each office, we generated a waste action plan. So again, to those targets, where is everyone at, and what actions and steps can we actually make tailored to the context and the people that are actually experiencing it and like viewing the behaviors day to day. And so that's one of the things that we really leaned on. And at the moment, so that was like last year. This year we're just doing a second round of waste audits to see where we're progressing against some of the actions, which is like waste lineage or reducing like single use snacks in our office. So how those things are adding up to, what is it? How is it impacting what we're actually doing as well? And so I think kind of wrap it up, like one of the key takeaways, and I definitely share a lot of the same views as Zoe in terms of it's really important to kind of build connection with, I guess, not only peers, but people inside your organization. A lot of people these days have a lot of passion for sustainability, and so it's kind of giving them like small opportunities, accessible opportunities to really lean in and help, because they're the ones who, like, everyone needs to be on the same boat to drive like small behavior change, and then over time it leads to something greater and bigger in terms of it's like a progressive change, and so getting everyone on the journey. And so that's kind of my key takeaway, and I probably want to wrap it up there probably have more to say in the panel, but yeah, I'll hand it back to Steph.
Thank you, Julie. I think at least like when you were going through what your team have done when it comes to like looking at very like tried and tested methodologies, like setting clear success metrics and like tracking progress and really working towards like clear outcomes. Like I think we all can agree that that's super important when it comes to achieving net zero and making that a reality. So yeah, definitely like to touch on some more of that when we go into the panel discussion in a sec. So I'll actually like to hand it over to Harry, who will be talking more about what his team have been doing in the area of greening the supply chain.
Thank you. My name's Harry, and I work for Boston Scientific. So Boston Scientific makes medical devices, products that enable people to live longer, healthier lives. And we believe our commitment to improve health comes with a responsibility to contribute to the communities in which we work. And that's where sustainability comes in. So we will confront climate change to protect the environment, to enable people to live healthier lives. And that really ties in with our product and purpose. Next slide, please. So at Boston Scientific, we have a 3C strategy in terms of cutting, converting, and compensating to reduce our company emissions. So I'll step through each of the 3 Cs. So first one's cutting. So in Penang, Malaysia, which is a factory in our region, we've made it an energy management certified site. And we've increased our total number of certified manufacturing sites to 13, which is a majority of our sites around the world. So in terms of using energy efficiently, that is the first pillar in terms of cut. We also convert. So Kerkrade, Netherlands, we don't use natural gas at all. And you can see there on the slide in Ireland, Malaysia, Netherlands, and Costa Rica, we've completed on-site solar installations for a total of 8 sites. That is probably about half our sites around the world. Some of our sites, say those in Ireland or in Minnesota, probably would not be suitable for 100% solar. So where we can, we have converted to solar, but also we're converting to renewable. And then thirdly, where we cannot do the first 2, we then compensate with carbon credits, where we offset for unavoidable emissions. So in Australia, we have a net zero provider, Smartways, that does all our freight from a net zero point of view. They use electric vehicles as well as they buy carbon credits. Next slide, please. So since 2022, we've contracted with Smartways, which is a logistics supply in Australia that uses carbon offsets and also electric vehicles for all domestic deliveries. It's a net zero logistics provider. Recently, in the last couple of months, we've asked our customers to consolidate their shipments, to reduce overnight deliveries, and also raise larger order quantities. So in July, we got a 10% reduction in carbon per shipment from prior year, and then through the middle of August, we had a 15% reduction compared to last August. So by 2026 globally, we hope to reduce our supply chain costs annually by about $80 million. That's around the globe. How has CitySwitch helped us? So we participated in the CitySwitch pilot for carbon accounting a couple of years ago, and it really gave us a baseline to come up to speed in terms of where our carbon is and what we can do about that. So that's all I have to say, and I hope to chat more in the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, Harry. I think that's like super impressive in terms of the outcomes and the commitments, and really interesting to see how participating in pilot programs has really enabled like really concrete progress to be made in this area. So thank you for sharing. I think switching gears in terms of the next speaker, I'd actually love to pass it to Susan now from JLL, who was our CitySwitch champion for getting your team on board. I think you're still on mute, Susan.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. Lovely to meet you all. I'm the Head of Sustainability for our Property and Asset Management Division. So we manage property on behalf of landlords, but as many of you would know, JLL provides advisory as well as sales, leasing, facilities management and property management services, to name a few. I'm very excited to talk about our journey and how we've achieved connection and engagement within our organisation. Next slide, Stephanie. So one of the crucial things here is to try and embed sustainability within your business. And it's amazing the number of people that do come up to us and ask a bit more about it. And there is a passion generally around people wanting to know more about sustainability. So one of the things that was introduced into across the company was an e-learning onboarding program for all staff in sustainability. So that started in 2023, and basically it introduces staff to our goals, ESG goals, and it talks about integration of sustainability across the value chain. And it's a real taster or good start to understanding why we do it and how we do it. The amazing part about all this is that we achieved a 75% completion rate for this training course by the end of 2023. And now this program is mandatory. So all new employees, it's part of the sustainability onboarding program. They must complete within the first 90 days of starting with the organisation. And it also just allows them to have enough information to be able to contact any of the sustainability people within the organisation to ask for a bit more. The other element we took on board was the Connect intranet. So we use that to communicate all about sustainability related information, and that could be initiatives and programs that we might be working on for clients, and it could be things that we are doing at a corporate level, as well as a need to know emails that come out quite often, and just reflecting on sustainability in the workplace. And these come from global. They are also sent out at Australia level as well to all our teams. And it's just continually creating awareness and a culture for enhancing sustainability. We also encourage within the organisation low carbon transport and use of reusable containers and cups to our staff. We are very fortunate. We have 2 full-time baristas in the office that provide us with coffee service all day, and hence we tend to use just cups and mugs within the office as well. And those that want takeaway bring in their own takeaway key cup style. Thank you, Stephanie. Next slide. And I'd just like to add that from there, we've also achieved a few other things where part of our commitment, and one of those is our national officers have achieved either a 5 or 6-star Green Star certification and a WELL Gold or Platinum certification. And so these nationally recognised rating tools allow us to set a precedence, and we're following suit and I guess walking the talk with all our clients as well. So we look forward to continuing to maintain that, as well as we've got an average NABERS rating of 5.3 star across the portfolio of all buildings that we occupy, and a 42% reduction in emissions from electricity since 2018, and we're still working on that. We are switching to 100% renewable energy across 70% of our leased office space. So, and finally, how CitySwitch community has helped us. Well, thank you. Well, we've received a lot of resources, guide. I can contact anyone from the team at any time when I need help. Website, webinars and events, and I encourage everyone to attend these. And great networking opportunities. So you don't feel alone out there in the sector or in your industry, knowing that there are many people that are aligned and are working on the same initiative. And of course, stakeholder engagement. And going into this and meeting new people just allows you to realise that you're not alone on this journey. So I highly encourage networking with your peers down this path. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. I think you've shared quite a number of things here as well that we'd love to touch on in the panel and in the breakout room session in a sec. I will now hand it over to Emily, who will be speaking from representing the initiatives around waste management at EnviroDNA. Emily, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Stephanie. So I'm office manager at EnviroDNA and their sister company, Caesar Australia. We are scientific research companies and we are small to medium businesses. So in total in our shared office space, there's only about 30 people. So I think our approach is quite different to some of the other speakers today. And we're kind of new to establishing, I guess, an official sustainability team. So Steph, yep, thank you. So yeah, we reduced our waste in 2023, 24. So the reason that we targeted that and have made such progress is that it really was a low hanging fruit for us. We actually aren't a traditional office because we've got labs in the office that have specialized equipment. And as you may have gathered from the name, we're a molecular lab as well. So we have a lot of materials that come out of the lab that are only single use. So as you can see from my notes there, we've got a high level of guilt when we see how much waste comes out of the lab every week. But we also wanted to provide staff more opportunities to bring waste from home to take advantage of our recycling streams. So we already pay for our waste collection. We don't use the council collection, which is probably not that unusual for many people, but for us as a small business, it kind of is. And due to that, it was a lot of work chasing down the cryptic information over exactly what is recyclable. You know, is this hard plastic recyclable versus this hard plastic? Is this soft plastic recyclable? So on and so forth. So it was quite a bit of effort actually chasing down that information from our waste provider. And it was also, you know, a bit of a tough pill to swallow for small business owners to pay extra for niche recycling. So, you know, over the last year, we're now paying for soft plastic recycling, for example, and we get a lot of cold DNA samples in the mail in polystyrene eskies. So we have to pay to take that to a recycler as well, for example. And I guess, you know, when we're talking about diversifying our recycling streams, the more streams there are, the more effort there is. It's not as simple as just putting things in the red bin or the yellow bin. It's taking things to the tip, it's collecting things here, it's arranging pickups, that kind of thing. So yeah, some challenges. What we would have done differently, what I learned recently on kind of presenting a wrap up of the year to our staff is that a lot of them still didn't really understand which materials were recyclable. So despite the kind of casual conversation, the little signs here and there, what it seemed to have taken was an actual all staff meeting where I'm sitting there and showing them a picture of a Tetra Pak on the screen and saying this can go in the recycling bin for people to seemingly understand that. So yeah, I think if we were to do it again, I would have done that right at the start of the process. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to put here sort of some of our different waste streams that we've got here, sort of from, I guess, I was going to say high difficulty to low, but it's not really even that. So, you know, we pay for our soft plastics and polystyrene, but again, this is another hard pill to swallow. It's in theory, this stuff is recyclable, but it's only when there's a market willing to purchase those materials that they are actually recyclable. So previously, we'd taken all of our polystyrene to a local council tip and they sold it on to recyclers. There's currently not a market for that, so we can't take it there anymore. And everybody knows the Red Cycle saga, so I don't need to talk about that. We now pay for cardboard only skip, given that we get so many deliveries. So that helps us to kind of pay less. Thanks, Stephanie. And diversify a bit better. I'll sort of skip through. Everyone knows about the CDS. I guess another thing when we get into sort of like the bottom end of the list is sort of participating in the local community and finding people who have use for things that we no longer have use for. So all of our obsolete IT we give to a community group that refurbishes them and gives them to people in need. Again, like a local community support group reached out on Facebook and said, does anyone have packaging materials to give to people who are starting over, and we're giving them free crockery. My dentist actually has the free collection for toothbrushes, so we're collecting for that. And yeah, you can see there's a few other things there, but just sort of hard rubbish rescue as a lifestyle practice is something that we've taken advantage of to get things, secondhand things, instead of buying new, but also getting rid of things that we don't need in the office and putting it back into the community instead of the bin. So yeah, it's a lot of different things, but as the office and facilities manager, luckily I have capacity for that while we're still remaining fairly small. And that's it. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. I think it shows the power of a small but mighty team and really impressive programs of work here. I think, when it comes to waste management, education is like an ongoing challenge, but also an opportunity to really see like what else we could be doing more in this space as well, knowing that some industries have it a little harder than others as well. So really great to see. I'll actually now be handing it over to Josh from Pangolin, who alongside Harry was a CitySwitch champion for greening your supply chain. So over to you, Josh.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steph, and the CitySwitch team for having me today. So I'm a senior consultant at Pangolin Associates. So Pangolin is a consultancy working with organisations to measure, report and reduce emissions. So as advocates for strong climate action, Pangolin like to conduct itself by leading by example. Pangolin has been a CitySwitch member and participant for approximately 10 years, I believe. Additionally, Pangolin is a B Corp certified organisation, a UN Global Compact signatory, a climate active certified service, and committed to achieving net zero via the SBTi. Now, being within the professional services industry, Pangolin's emissions profile is quite similar to an office-based professional service business that most of you would have experienced as well. That is that approximately more than 50% of your emissions would be attributed to your scope 3. In Pangolin's case, that's 97% of our emissions in 2023 were associated with our scope 3 emissions. That's our upstream and downstream services and products. Now, to date, Pangolin has already done some actions to reduce the scope 3 emissions. Just to name a few, where possible, we're procuring services and providers with environmental and ethical credentials, such as B Corp organisations or climate active certified services and products. An example of that is we have our company phone plan with Telstra, which is a climate active carbon neutral product. We have chosen office locations which have high energy ratings and have emission reduction commitments themselves. We procure green power where we need to, and we actively network and learn from other organisations on their journeys towards net zero. So sort of what was sort of spoken about earlier, sort of learning off each other. And then finally, yearly, we measure our emissions. Perfect. Next slide. Yep. So as Pangolin has grown, so too have our absolute emissions. However, as you can see, over the years, Pangolin has shown a decrease in emissions in intensity per FTE, so that's full-time employees, because of the existing practices in place to sort of push down the emissions associated. So looking forward, Pangolin is currently working on reviewing its procurement policies to continue decreasing the emissions per full-time employees. This will involve engaging with our suppliers to obtain more granular emission data and advocating that they also take stronger emission reduction actions. This also means educating and networking with other organisations for stronger and more immediate emission reduction actions through our services and events such as this, but also as some of the speakers have spoken and mentioned today, buy-in from all levels of the organisation is important. So Pangolin has taken a bottom-up approach to workshop and reinvigorate policies and emission targets to further improve the ability to reduce supply chain emissions within the organisation. It is only through ongoing measurement, engagement, and education internally and externally that Scope 3 emissions can be targeted and reduced. Pangolin is committed to engaging with all and the broader community to sort of help on the journey to net zero. And that's essentially me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Joss. I think it's super impressive here, as you can see, with like the significant progress that's already been made with emissions reduction. So yeah, looking forward to see how you and the team continue making progress in this area. And last but not least, I think I'd like to hand it over to Alistair, who was a CitySwitch champion last year for getting your team on board alongside Susan. So over to you, Alistair.
Okay, thanks very much for having me. Yeah, Green Energy Trading an environmental certificate agent. So we help businesses access all of the different financial incentives and rebates that the federal or state governments have around the country. We also do like environmental market analysis and net zero consultation and sell decoupled green power. Like Emily, we're a relatively small office here in Melbourne. I think there's around 30 or so people. The difference is that we all work in this job. So kind of like the getting your team on board, everyone's for the cause. And so the main things that we've done over the last little journey is just really kind of practical initiatives. So the first one was a GLOW initiative, which stands for possibly the daggiest acronym I've ever come across: Get Lighter, Offset and Win. And that was basically getting people to do an energy efficiency upgrade and calculate their CO2 abatement, and the company would contribute $1,000 to that upgrade, which was good. The PT bonus is we realised that in terms of the behaviour that we can kind of incentivise for people to cut down on their emissions, like most offices, we pay for car parks in the building, but which, you know, in a way incentivises people to drive. It costs $3,500 per year per car park. And we as a company decided that it'd be worthwhile to incentivize people to be doing things that are less carbon intensive, like catching public transport or riding a bike. So introduced giving people $250 per month if they're catching the train every day, riding a bike or walking to the office. We got a electric vehicle a little while ago, and one of the things that we introduced was novated leasing for EVs. I think because previously tax on the fringe benefit tax was it wasn't eligible for electric cars, but in 2022, I think that changed. So we've started doing novated leasing for electric vehicles if people here are interested in getting into them, but don't have the upfront cash. Similar to other people here, our waste streams, we've got no single-use plastics in the office. We've got a coffee machine, although we don't have any professional baristas like JLL, but we have some people who probably reckon that they are, which is handy. And the other thing that we've got is lunch and learns, which are like monthly presentations by team members on different topics like waste, the climate reality project, electric vehicles. We got one coming up, which is about the meteorology of climate change, which should be interesting. And we had another one recently that was a bit off topic, but it was about diversity in the office, where all of the people that had kind of migration stories kind of shared them. And that's kind of, yeah, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Alistair. I'm sure during the panel discussion and the breakout rooms, you can share more details about some of these initiatives here. It sounds like there's a lot of different programs of work that you and the team are driving, which is great to see. So thank you to all of our speakers. I think in a very short amount of time, we covered quite a lot. There were many insights that were shared, like ideas for what has worked very well, both internally and externally, to really tap into these communities. And yeah, really interesting initiatives across these 3 different areas of the net zero pathway. Many of you touched on how being part of the CitySwitch community has really enabled your company to go further on its journey. So I think during this panel conversation around why connections matter, would love to dive a little deeper into some of those themes. I was also taking notes as you were all speaking to really ensure that a lot of these questions are like adding on to some of the things that really stood out. So the first question I actually had was for Zoe. I think even in the chat just now, you mentioned that the power of show and tell, and really not just, of course, focusing and investing in these initiatives, but talking about it, making sure that people have eyes on it and understand like all the great work that's happening. I was wondering if you could share any tips with the group today around how you can encourage more of that show and tell, whether it's internally within the team or outside of the company.
I mean, thanks, Steph. We've had some really great examples here. And, you know, as people have been speaking, the chat has been saying, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to steal that one. Any forums like this are obviously really great opportunities. And that idea of just having a quick overview and a quick insight into other people's projects is super useful. But look, there's other, you know, go on LinkedIn. Those are spaces where you can also tell a quick and short story. And I think there's something really very attractive about just telling a little bit of the human side of the story rather than here's the big results of what we did. But some of the stuff that we've heard from others, champions today around, you know, getting simple interventions done within the organization where our staff are talking to each other has had this kind of result, because those are the things that aren't a template that you can pick up somewhere. It's not a project that necessarily requires a big buy-in from the organization, but just we're doing some lunch and learns. We want to share expertise across the team. Those things are also really attractive to people to get involved with, and it pulls people out of their, you know, if their role doesn't have any sustainability in it, it connects them to what's happening in other parts of the business as well. So if there's not an opportunity to tell your story, create it. You know, if you're an extrovert like me, you can just go around telling people whether they want to hear about it or not, but find some channels and use partnerships like CitySwitch to say, hey, we've got a good story. Do you want to tell it? And obviously, if it's if there's a NABERS rating associated, we're like CitySwitch, we want to tell those stories and create case studies as well. So find those channels where you can tag into something to get it out.
Yeah, no, great for sharing. I think as you were speaking, Zoe, I think it reminded me of something that Julie touched on when she was like sharing the initiatives her team are doing around how to really encourage this internally within the team and kind of giving them opportunities to be a part of it and to participate and to engage as well. So I was wondering, Julie, like, would you have any, I guess, further examples to share around how you can encourage this internal, I guess, like culture of sustainability?
Yeah, I think it's definitely through, yeah, like kind of giving, like again, like giving those accessible opportunities for people, because one of the challenges with like getting people on board at NOWS has been like it's always been like a volunteer basis, like whoever has time, they can lean in. I think one of the key things is definitely consistency. I think consistency from, like, say we have like a core sustainability team, and it's about a matter of like be consistent in showing our presence and saying that this is actually really important to NOWS alongside all our other work. But then kind of like reiterating the messaging, and then on the side of that also giving them like not just opportunities like when we post something on Microsoft Teams around like we have this big initiative, kind of like encouraging like small ideas to pop up as well. Like sometimes I get people, like if I talk to people in the office, like over lunch or something, and I'm like, oh, I'm actually working on this thing on the sustainability team, and all of a sudden I find out that they're really passionate about it too, and they're really keen to get on board. So I think it is those small interactions, and I think it's just with consistency and showing that like the company cares about it, we are doing something about it, and there's like making sure those opportunities are in view. I think that's really important for people to be like, oh yeah, I'm actually really interested in this too. I think a lot of people are like interested like internally, but they just need like someone to have a face, put a face to something that's not just a post. Like kind of like showing up, getting people to show up in that way.
Okay, thanks, Julie. And Emily, you've got your hands up.
Yeah, Julie, by the way, I really loved what you presented. I've definitely stolen some ideas from that too for our future plans. Just further to what you were saying, I've found that after I've had the opportunity to really kind of have a forum and talk with my colleagues about the work that we're doing. After that, I tend to get a trickle of people coming and going, hey, I've got this idea too. What if we do this? Have you seen this product? Can we buy this next time for when we need to restock, that kind of thing? And I found that really giving people that opportunity to kind of have ownership and contribute, it kind of gives them the serotonin boost that kind of really helps to continue, because sometimes, working in this space can feel a bit hopeless. When you think about, for us, for waste, when we see about how much is going into waste that we wish we could recycle. So, having some of the wins and people being able to bring things from home and see that being diverted kind of generates this positive energy that really keeps people going as well, especially if they can kind of have ownership of some of that stuff themselves.
Great. And I think, Emily, as you were speaking, I think when you were saying that, it was very much like it's like a small and mighty team that show up every day. So I think that's when like the role of community and the value that comes with connecting with your peers and really encouraging this culture of sustainability is all the more important. I actually also had a question for Susan. I think when you were speaking about some of the initiatives at JLL, you'd mentioned that being part of the CitySwitch community has, of course, brought a lot of opportunities to network and to connect with like-minded peers. And I think the word networking itself can be quite daunting for some of us. I think like if you're a bit more introverted like me, it's sometimes a little overwhelming. So I wanted to ask Susan, would you have any tips and tricks to share for those of us who do want to put ourselves out there and to connect with like-minded peers, but don't really know how to get started?
Gosh, networking is such a personal challenge, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. Have I met enough people tonight, or have I met too many people tonight? What I do, and I'm a bit of an introvert, I will tend to go to face-to-face catch-ups. I find them a little bit more comfortable, and I will make sure I at least talk to 5 different people in the room. And for everyone it will be a different journey, but I think just it's so easy to go in with your colleagues and sort of hang around your colleagues the whole night, and I think you just got to pull yourself out of the group and put yourself forward and meet 1 or 2 new people, and if you can get through to a few more, and you'd be surprised, sometimes the connections just happen naturally. People flow in and out of groups and start chatting to you. So it's a personal journey, and I think you just have to put yourself out there.
I think it's great to set yourself like almost like a personal goal of speaking to like this many people, or having, having a conversation about just like not what you do, but learning about like what they're doing and kind of having that curiosity. I think that's really great to hear. I was wondering for Harry, actually, I was going to ask, like off the back of what Susan just mentioned around in-person opportunities to connect, like since, I mean, we're all having this online today, and I think especially after during the pandemic, we were all quite used to having a lot of our conversations digitally. So I was curious to ask you, Harry, like, do you have any, I guess, personal experiences or reflections to share around like how it has also been beneficial to connect with people like in person?
Thank you. Absolutely. I think since the pandemic, you know, a lot of people got very comfortable with virtual, but I don't know if you've noticed that when you actually interact with a person and have a face-to-face conversation, you feel better, you feel differently, and you glow, and those are the benefits of in-person. So my tip for more in-person interaction is just to come into the office. You know, if you can come in, you know, more than once or twice a week and see the difference it might make for you. The other thing is I put in the chat some study that you can do that I'm doing at Cambridge, and you go and meet other like-minded people in Cambridge once a year. So, you know, I asked Cambridge, could you do it all virtual? And they said no, because they see the benefit of in-person. So yeah, come into the office.
Great, and thank you so much for sharing that resource. I think some of us can check it out after the webinar as well. And yeah, thank you for sharing your reflections on that, Harry. Alistair, I think I was also like curious to hear, like based off of a lot of these internal initiatives that you spoke about to really encourage your colleagues to get on board. I was curious to know, would you have any thoughts on how to also like tap into external communities as well and to really help like scale a lot of like the great work that your team are doing and to kind of get it on the radar of like your peers?
Yeah, well, a lot of the people who work here, because they're kind of passionate environmentalists, they're part of external groups. So we've got like a waste campaigner here and other people who kind of tapped into different kind of political campaigns and stuff like that as well. So there's ample opportunity for people internally in the office to gain knowledge on different things that they can do and contribute on a community basis. But were you specifically asking about people internal to the business, or how we can our impact on people outside?
Oh no, I think even just the first point you mentioned around how even individual people on your team, like they're part of external communities and networks outside as well, right? So I think that's even like a great example to share in terms of how they can advocate for a lot of the initiatives and programs of work that your team are doing and making sure that people outside the company are also aware and can engage as well. And I've got time for one more question. I wanted to ask Josh, like during your session, you mentioned that it's like in terms of the community, it's also around finding opportunities to collaborate. So of course, like a bit more active and kind of taking that a little further. I was just curious, like, do you have any practical kind of ways that you've tried in the past to really kind of identify who these like-minded peers and like organizations who share like similar ambitions and values, like how can you go about in identifying them?
Yep, I think for us, we're in a unique and great position that we're encouraged to go out and network and sort of go to all these events and sort of meet new people on the daily, where we can learn from other people and sort of identify people who we share sort of goals or challenges with, that we sort of bounce ideas off each other, and then bring those ideas back to the organization and sort of try and build on that. But also on the daily, we deal with organizations and sort of learn what their problems are. And I suppose Pangolin in general is in the business of solving problems, so that we're constantly trying to sort of solve your problems whilst also solving the broader community's problems and our own problems.
Great, thank you. And yeah, I think it's like a nice way to wrap up the session in that it's like we're ultimately like not alone in terms of solving problems, and like no matter what industries or what the priorities are for various teams, it's something that really encouraging that collaboration and these conversations to happen internally as well as with peers, and to really kind of bring in that diversity of perspectives is super, super valuable. So yeah, thank you everyone for sharing your advice and experiences with the group. I think we've done a lot of talking on our end. So we're actually now heading to our breakout rooms, which is a great opportunity for everyone else who has joined to connect directly with one another. So I think in terms of time, we might have maybe 10 minutes for the breakout rooms. And these groups have been arranged based off of the topic that you chose when you registered for the webinar, based on the 3 focus areas. And our speakers here today, as well as members of the CitySwitch team, will also be in each of the rooms. So really do make the most of the time that you have together, and that this is really not designed to be a one-off conversation. We really hope that there's a lot more that's going to happen beyond the webinar. I know that there's already quite a few of you chatting already and have shared your LinkedIn profile. So really encourage these connections to continue. We've included some prompts here, as you can see, and we'll drop it in the chat just so you have them handy. I'll hand it over to Ivan, who will now set up the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I'll open those breakout rooms now. So I hope this works. So I'll see you all back in 10 minutes, hopefully.
Oh, hey, and that's the code.
Welcome back, everyone.
Oh, what happened?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
Right.
So I was just going to go flick through. I know that we had to reduce the time in the breakout rooms slightly, but hoping that it sparked a lot of new connections and some interesting conversations that you can all continue even beyond this webinar. And so, yeah, we really hope you enjoyed today's session. And if you're actually interested to keep these conversations going and to host your own community events down the line, stay tuned, as we will soon be publishing a new guide that's available on the CitySwitch website, where you can access some tips and tricks and maybe some helpful templates to help you organize the next one as well. So to wrap up today's session, I'll actually hand it over to Ivan.
Great. Thanks, Steph. Yeah, thanks everyone for taking part in today's webinar. Really appreciate your participation. A big thank you to Zoe and to all our champions for taking the time to participate and sharing some really amazing stories. Yeah, we hope you all found it worthwhile and that you made a connection or two. So yeah, just to mention, we have 2 more events coming up as part of our Connecting Your Members campaign. So we have a in-person networking event in Sydney next week on the 25th of September. So that's a Wednesday. That's between 5:30 and 7 p.m. And also another in-person event in Melbourne at between 5:30 and 7:30 at 10 on the 10th of October, sorry. And both events are hosted by one of our new members, Winya, which is really great. So big shout out to them for hosting. And yeah, there's still plenty of time to register. So we'll send a reminder email after this with the registration links. But I think you hopefully all have had them anyway. Next slide, please, just to close off quickly. So yeah, thanks for everyone for joining. And if you're a new member or an aspiring CitySwitch member, then please scan the QR code below just to find out more about our program. We'll also send the recording around as well for this session, so feel free to send it around your colleagues and peers. And yeah, just thank you so much for participating, and chat to you all soon.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.